Services and project coordinator of the Vibrant Faith Institute, which is an online education program for the faith formation leaders. So he has a number of publications, and we have samples of those books here today. They include Families at the Center of Faith Formation, Seasons of Adult Faith Formation, Reimagining Faith Formation for the 21st Century, Generations Together, and Faith Formation 2020. So John is the founder of Lifelong Faith Associates in 2006, and the Center for Ministry Development in 1978. He has worked in Catholic ministry and faith formation for 48 years. So please all join me in welcoming John Roberto.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's always great to be in Toronto. It's greater in July and August, but it's okay in January. I live in very southern Canada, in Connecticut. The New England states have been kind of positioning themselves to be kind of annexed by Canada, so we just kind of put ourselves in that way. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to do this project. For those who are going to stay on for the whole 18 months, I think you're going to have a great time. I've done this with Catholic dioceses all across the United States. It's a chance. The nice thing about the time that we can have together is you get a chance not only to learn about it, but also implement it and get feedback on it and keep growing. So as I kind of lay out Lifelong Faith Formation today, it's kind of obvious that you're not going to be able to do this in 3 weeks. Okay, so we want to lay out a plan, we want to implement that plan, so you'll be appropriately overwhelmed during the day. That's just normal, so don't worry about that, okay? You're also going to be with somebody who lives in the Northeast U.S., grew up in an Italian household, both sides, and has only one way of speaking, which is fast. So by all means, ask questions as we go. Don't wait for me to stop because it'll be 4 o'clock when I stop. Oh, we have lunch, so I'll be at lunch before we stop. So just ask questions as we go in context, because that's always helpful. With materials and resources that I'm going to be using today, I have put them online for you. So I just want you to know you can download them really anytime. The handout you have is now in a PDF. You want to make copies for people, send it out. The PowerPoint I'm going to use is in both formats, PowerPoint format as well as a PDF. I have an assessment that's part of the handout, but it's in a Word file, so you could actually just do it, the easy way. And we have a homework for people will be the Congregational Faith Formation profile. And again, it's a Word file, you just type into it. So that material is there. I didn't want to be detained at the border carrying 100 books with me, as you might imagine. So I put chapter 2 and 3 from the Reimagining book online in PDF. So you can read that, download it, that kind of stuff. And you have permission to reprint all of this stuff, okay? So it's not like you don't have to ask permission. That's why it's up there. Most people just do it anyway without permission, as you might imagine, right? And then I'll talk about some research tools later. Sometimes at the end of the workshop, between workshop 1 and workshop 2, you might want to do a little homework and research on a target audience that you want to serve better. And I've got some examples of research tools, and I could add more to this. As we go through the project, I will add resources to this page. So all you have to know is the vision and practice, and just go to Lifelong Faith Formation. So if people say, I really would like something about this, I'll post it here for everybody, okay? And then Racquel can get that out to you, or I'll send you an email with that. So this will kind of be our resource center. There'll be a lot of other resources up here. Later we'll talk about, people always ask me, well, what resources are available that we could use in digital formats. I've got some examples of those resources up here, that kind of thing. So we'll get into all of that. But I just want you to know this is where to go to download this. Share it with your team back home, those who couldn't be here. If only 1 or 2 people are here, you want to get a bigger team back home to work with, share this with them. Just know it's there. Okay. Okay. Let me do a little bit by way of just overview of you probably are asking yourself at this point, what did you get yourself into? It's an inevitable thing, like, oh my God, what am I doing here? It's a Saturday, okay. So let's look at that a little bit. Oh, email is here, email's on the website. The email only goes to one person on the website, me, so you don't have to worry. So this is kind of our topics list. This is kind of the things that we're going to do over the 3 workshops and then into next year. So it's kind of like what I call the workshop phase, and then there's the ongoing consulting and resourcing phase. So the next kind of 6 months is the kind of the training, resource, work planning, design piece. And then the year after that is you begin to implement projects, programs, activities that you select from this. So here's the thing this is not about. There is not going to be a program that we're going to recommend you do that will solve all the issues in lifelong faith formation in your church. Because you all know that doesn't exist, okay? Everybody will create their plan, and then we will help with resources for your plan. Because every parish has a lot of uniqueness to it. Now, sometimes parishes think that they're the only parish like themselves in the whole galaxy, which is, I've been at this a lot. That's not really true. But every parish has uniqueness in terms of their people, their context, their cultures. So everything has to be applied contextually. So we can supply lots of resources and tools that you can use, but your plan will be yours. You might find you can partner with other churches here, which I really would recommend, okay? Especially if you're a smaller parish, to find other parishes you can partner with. Sometimes in some of these strategies you can collaborate and design it. Even though we're going to do it in our individual parishes, we can save some time by designing things together. So what you come out with will be your plan. Where you start will be your plan. You're going to build on the assets and strengths you already have. So it's not about stop doing that and start doing something new that this guy from Connecticut told you would work, okay? I'm going to lay out a lot of things and then invite you to say, what would be appropriate? So I'm more interested in processes and practices and then recommending lots of resources. But you be the judge of which ones work because you know your people. So we're going to look a lot today at the first 2 pieces. I call it a faith-forming ecology, more about that in about 10 minutes. And then the practices that go with that. So what does a 21st century approach to faith formation look like? In the churches I work with, and I work not only Roman Catholic, but I work really across all the mainline churches. Most churches have simply inherited faith formation from the 20th century. We're Catholics, so we might have inherited it from the 18th, 17th, or 16th century. But they've been inherited. And what happens is you find yourself with these models in a changed world. They worked in 1975 or 85 or 95. But now we're in 2018, you go, these aren't working really well. Well, because we transplanted them. So they're like foreigners in a new land, okay? And so we have to think about this in a 21st century way. I was with a group 2 weeks ago and said, we're already 18 years into the 21st century. I said, this is church. We're just a month or 2 in. Okay, when you think about 2,000 years, 18 years is just a drop in the bucket. So we're going to focus on 1 and 2. I'm going to give you the beginnings of developing a lifelong plan, but that's the focus of our second workshop. We're going to look at some digital methods and resources. I'll talk more about that. I think the digital transformation that's happening in North America, Europe, around the world, literally, everywhere, it affects the way we do education, learning, and faith formation. Okay? And so I come at this transformation not as a digital native. That should be pretty obvious. I come as a faith formation person who sees an opportunity to use some of these new tools and resources that are available to us, and the ones that people in their 20s and 30s and 40s are using all the time, let alone our teenagers and children. And we'll talk about online platforms. We'll talk about how to curate. One of the shifts that's going to happen as I do this is lifelong faith formation is really broad. There's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all. It's kind of like we're in a one-size-fits-one world, okay? And so when we're thinking about content, you don't have the time to design all these programs, activities, and content, but you can curate them. And all of us know curators. You've been to a museum that curates, science centers, and the rest. The way we're thinking about is balancing creating and curating. And in 2018, the abundance of digital content, let alone audio, video, and print, is just absolutely amazing. 5 or 10 years ago, not so much. But today, the abundance of high-quality digital media, Catholic, broadly Christian, Just think of an example like TED Talks. You know, who was thinking about TED Talks 15 years ago? The original TED Talk started over 30 years ago, but they never videotaped them. There was no video recording at all. They were live events in Monterey, California. You paid, $5,000 for the week to be among these, international stars. And then all of a sudden, they started saying, we should video record these. Well, a couple of thousand videos later, some of these TED Talks, like Sir Ken Robinson's TED Talk, have been viewed like 15 or 16 million times. So this is the changed environment. So we have to do less creating and a whole lot more curating. We'll talk a lot about that as we go into like workshop 3, when you'll say, oh my God, I need resources. God heard your plea, there's plenty of resources. And then how do we introduce innovation to our church? I know, innovation in the Catholic Church in the same sentence. But in fact, churches are innovating all the time. So, and that's been our history, even though we don't often recognize that. The church has always innovated. Okay? And so, stained glass windows a long, long time ago was an innovation. Okay, it's the way we communicated the story of faith, visually, in media. It didn't move like media does today, but it was visual, and it told the story. So we'll talk about how to introduce it. So that's where we're going, okay? Step by step. The key for me, and I think this is also for Racquel and Father Chris, is that you keep on letting us know what do you need as you go through this process. It's not just going to a workshop. It's a relationship. So what do you need? What resources, what help? You need to feel free to say that. Don't get stuck. Just ask. Okay, that's our job. I go through this process oftentimes. People say, oh yeah, a couple months ago, we just kind of bogged down. You didn't send me an email? Oh, is that what you meant by don't get stuck? Yeah, that's what I meant by don't get stuck. Let us know how we can help you. That's our job, okay? So don't get stuck. If you got a question, you need a resource, just ask. You don't get this invitation very often, by the way, so take advantage of this, okay? So here's the programs. Today we're going to reimagine faith formation for the 21st century. I'm going to bring in lots of insights. It's not just things that are happening within religious organizations. It's things that are happening in the education world, the business world. What are we learning about education, learning, growth, bigger than just the church? In program 2, in April, which will be a little warmer, envisioning lifelong faith formation, which is how do we develop it? So all the components of that, we'll introduce those today. And then program 3 is how to design that. So between 2 and 3, you'll start to have an idea, this is where we want to go, and we'll have a day of which, what do you need to, what resources, and how do we design new initiatives? And then we're going to use webinars throughout the year next year. You're busy, we want you to go implement the projects, we want you to come to workshops. So we'll do it in a webinar format. Probably given the size of the group, we'll probably offer a couple of different times. But we'll do a web conference. If you've ever been on the Zoom web conferencing, and everybody's in a tile so we can see each other and talk to each other, so that'll be fun. And we'll do 3 of those. And then a year from May, June, we'll get together in one of the most fun days for me in this whole project, because you get a chance to share with each other, this is what we did, this is what we learned, here's how it worked. And what happens is the whole Archdiocese begins to develop approaches, models, resources that work in Toronto, in the Archdiocese. And you start sharing them with each other. You might say, well, you like what you did this year, I'm going to do that next year. And then we'll adapt it and work with it. So we're going to be creating these models that come out of our work. I did this in the Diocese of Buffalo, New York, just across the lakes. And same kind of process. This was like 7-8 years ago. We called it Adventures in Lifelong Faith Formation. But the day when people came together to share what they did was one of the most inspiring days I've ever had in faith formation. It was just, and these people just shared as creative, their only instructions were, we want you to share your projects as creatively and innovatively as you develop the project. So don't give us a handout and talk. Give us something. We had video pieces, we had people who did live interviews, we had one group that kind of role played their project. It was fascinating. But it was just this great day of really getting involved and immersed in it, and then watching people say, oh, I could do that in my parish, thank you. You know, you've been my research and development team. I'm going to try that next year. So that's where we're kind of headed. So that's the benefit. So if you're thinking about, do I want to keep on going, you can decide at the end of the day, but this is kind of where we're headed. We want to kind of wrap our arms around you and say, we're going to support you throughout this whole process. Okay, everyone comes in here with some dreams and hopes for faith formation in your parish community. Every now and then I'll do workshops for grandparents. Being a grandparent, it's kind of like a peer ministry. And I'll ask them, what's your hopes for your grandchildren? I mean, that could be the only question I ask for an hour and a half. Because we can go an hour and a half just on that one thing. You know, what's your hopes for your grandchildren in terms of faith, their education, what they're going to become? Off people go. Because everyone carries that with them. Well, you're here today because you've got hopes and dreams for the way in which you're going to form disciples, help people mature and grow in faith over a whole lifetime in your church. What I'd like you to do is just take a couple of minutes in silence, so this is not the group discussion part of the program, in silence, just to jot a couple of key words that reflect your dreams, your hopes. And then at your table, after a couple of minutes, when everyone seems to be ready, just go around and share a little bit with everybody at the table about the dreams and hopes you're bringing in. Maybe it's a target audience you want to go after. Maybe it's an outcome you want. Maybe it's what you want to see happen in your parish. Whatever it might be. What are you coming in with? What do you hope is going to happen as you bring this back home? Okay? So your hopes and dreams for faith formation in your parish community. Take a minute or two of silence, and then you can have the group discussion part of the day.